This week's classic interview is one that is very relevant given Donald Trump's presence in next week's Republican and Democratic final face off in the presidential election. In 2014, I interviewed Scott Kaufman, and the topic was, do women actually want the alpha male? It was an interview that at the time generated quite a bit of controversy. I got a lot of emails from people saying, David, this is basically just making beta males feel better by questioning whether women really want the alpha male. And it's so interesting now in the context of the Trump-Clinton election because of the conversations around Trump and sexual assault and him being defended as, hey, this is just alpha male behavior. And there's a lot of beta males that don't like it and blah, 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 blah. So let's go back to August of 2014 when I spoke to Scott Kaufman about this. I'm going to be thinking about this in the context of the election that is now just a few days away. I'm joined today by Scott Kaufman. He is scientific director of the Imagination Institute, also a researcher at the Positive Psychology Center at the University of Pennsylvania. Scott, I came across your work. You wrote an article, a very, very interesting article about the idea of the alpha versus the beta male. So for people who may not be familiar with that dichotomy, let's start there. What is the idea around the alpha and beta male?
Well, there's a lot of discussion on the internet about this distinction between the alpha and the beta, and the alpha is usually described as the really dominant male who, and the dominance is usually associated with aggression, with putting down others, with Machiavellianism and using strategy to manipulate others and kind of getting your way by being the top dog through that sort of aggression. And the beta male is usually depicted as submissive and weak and sensitive. And this kind of portrayal of this alpha beta, this distinction, leads out all of these shades of gray, which is actually what is attractive to women and what is actually the most likely to reach the high status social status hierarchy.
So understanding, of course, that we're talking about this in male-female relationships and that it is certainly a kind of heteronormative way to look at this, for the purposes of your article and the research we're looking at, that's what it looked at. So we're not ignoring that, but we're kind of working within that framework. What does research actually show when it is explored, when the kind of preference towards these two alpha and beta males are explored? What does research actually tell us?
There are different forms of aggression. You find that in the animal kingdom. You find that we're also animals, right? So you find that amongst humans, that there's an assertive kind of dominance where you are you're stating clearly what you want and your values, and you're maybe dominating competition among other fellow males. You know, it could be a mating is a competition as well, right? So dominating that competition, or dominating like in sports. But it's very clear that while you're being assertive, you're not using or directing that aggression or assertive towards the woman in a way that might be physically dangerous to the woman. And there's another kind of assertive dominance, which is the kind of dominance that really does involve this kind of aggression and this the stereotypical testosterone, where your way is the right way. And when you actually look at the science of what women find immensely attractive, it's that form of dominance that I was talking about, that is assertiveness, combined specifically with prosociality, or the kindness, the potential for kindness. So a really potent combination is that combination of assertiveness, where you not aggression, but the assertiveness with this potential for prosociality, and the potential for doing something that's very culturally valued in this world, producing something or having a skill set that a lot of people will recognize is great and is very valuable. This combination is what is immensely attractive to women.
It's very, very interesting because if you look at society, and particularly through the lens of media, right, there's a very different message that is being sent to many males by many areas of our kind of media and culture framework in terms of what is expected, right, in terms of making women attracted to you. And advertisers and big companies are aware of this, and they've actually used this to their advantage as well. If you look at cigarette advertising in decades past, this idea of the aggressive caricature of the so-called alpha male is really an image that's been reinforced quite a bit for men, hasn't it?
It has, and I think it's unfortunate because you have a lot of young men who may not have a lot of success with women, thinking that they need to adopt some of these traits in order to get women, and they're actually pushing women further away, and it's creating a very dangerous cycle for both the male and the female, an unhealthy cycle as well as just not productive. It's not getting them closer to their goals. If you want to get closer to your mating goals, I would look at this actual literature on what is actually attractive to women, really try to get something that's culturally valuable, and then be your authentic self. In the sense, I know that phrase is thrown around a lot, be your authentic self. And what I mean by that is get in touch with what your sexual attraction uniquely is going to be, because women find lots of different things sexually attractive. They find that when you are really cultivating, that's really coming from a deep within aspect of yourself. You're expressing yourself in a deep way that is culturally valuable. That in itself is very sexually powerful to women. Women are not necessarily looking for one prototype, and there are obviously lots of women differ in what they're looking for. But an overarching theme among women is they find this sort of when it seems to be authentically coming from within, that is what is sexually attractive, and that may be why there's this confound here. People say, "Oh, bad boys are sexually attractive." Well, maybe what I think this research suggests is that bad boys in the sense that they say whatever they want, they curse, they're rebellious. Those traits are sexually attractive because that person is being themselves, right? If you're genuinely a bad boy, be a bad boy. But if you're genuinely not a bad boy, don't try to be a bad boy, because that won't be attractive.
Scott, in your research, how early in men's lives would you say this stereotype or caricature of the aggressive alpha male starts to show up and be kind of pushed on young men? I mean, do you have a sense of how early in life we can see that?
Well, we're steeped in this culture, and very early in life you realize that there's this hierarchy in school, which is an artificial hierarchy that is not like the real world. But there's this hierarchy where the bully is on top, and you get this impression that and usually the bully or they do get sexual success in high school and things like that. But what a lot of young men really need to realize is that out there in the real world, in the stage of life, we get much more freedom to pursue and dominate our fields, not dominate people in a hubristic way, which is not sexually attractive to women, in a way that involves hubris and narcissism and aggression and insecurity, because at the root of that is insecurity, and women don't find insecurity attractive. You may be able to fool women in the short term, but very quickly, the research shows that relationships after the 9-month mark don't last with the narcissist or with that sort of bully insecurity type of personality. Really, for long lasting in the real world is cultivating lots of other things. But unfortunately, your point is very well taken. Unfortunately, it's very easy for the young male to not realize that, because of the way the hierarchical structure, the artificial microcosm of education is set up.
I'm interested in this idea that in school, the bully actually does do well to find a few different ways. Does it stand to reason that when humans were still, I won't say at X number of years ago, but when humans were closer to being in a state of nature, that the modern day bully may actually also have been the one that did the best at that time? In other words, is there some genetic element here possibly?
There are different paths to social status. And in this article I wrote, The Myth of the Alpha Male, I reviewed the evolutionary literature. And even the evolutionary literature suggests that even if you go far back in our lineage, the assertive but not aggressively dominant male did just as well in the social status hierarchy, actually did better in a wider range of situations. So the bully is very successful in a narrower range of situations. So if you're in a jail, obviously the stereotypical alpha male, who works out a lot and is physically dominant, is going to be the alpha male in that environment. But what I wanted to make the point in this article is that over a wider range of environments in the real world, it is this what the literature calls the prestigious male, not the dominant male. It's the prestigious male who combines assertiveness with kindness, with a culturally valued skill, that is more successful in life across all domains, not just the mating domain, but also in professionally and personally.
Very,
Other
very
kinds of
interesting
relationships.
stuff. We've been
Yeah.
speaking with Scott Kaufman. He is scientific director of the Imagination Institute, also a researcher in the Positive Psychology Center at the University of Pennsylvania. Really interesting stuff, Scott. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. I love chatting about this topic.